Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for RxSight Ed, an educational series brought to you by RxSight. It's a light adjustable learning session on the light adjustable lens and how practices are implementing it at the point of care for the betterment of their patients, but also for the betterment of their team. Now, today I'm joined with our friends from Wisconsin, Dr. Paul Singh and his optometric team, Dr. Banas and Dr. Schiffbauer. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Great to
Thank
be
you,
here,
Matt,
bro.
for having us.
We're excited about a lively session here, and it's really fun to have, both specialties that play such a big part in the light adjustable lens being a part of tonight's session. So I'm eager to hear all of your perspective. Now, just because you and I know each other, Dr. Singh, I'm going to have you just start off by telling us a little bit about your practice and your background, of the practice's background, and how you got involved with the light adjustable lens in the first place.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for having us, and looking forward to having a great conversation. I'm part of the Eye Centers of Racine and Kenosha. I'm president of this establishment. So my father started this practice back in 1982, actually. And so after my fellowship, I came back. I actually wanted to stay as a teaching attending out on the East Coast at Duke, but my dad's like, "You will come home. You will have to come home." I'm like, "Okay, Dad." So I came home and I joined his practice. But what he really established for me was this idea of innovating and never being complacent. So, he did a lot of first to do a lens implant, first to do RK, first to do LASIK, etc. And that mindset of adopting new technology, being comfortable with your skill set, but also being open-minded to bringing new technology and being able to bring that to the area was a big part of kind of what he kind of bestowed upon us. And then we established a research center because what I really wanted to do was be involved with academia still. Even though I'm of a private practice, I really wanted to make sure that we had the ability to be involved with academia in some way. And so being able to have a research center allowed us the opportunity to be involved with phase 2, 3, 4 trials, and then really involve ourselves with new technology even before they were available. So that's kind of the background as well. And what I've loved is I love teaching, I love interacting, and for me, having these two optometric colleagues who are on the call who have been a huge part of our practice was a big part of that, was growing our practice, not just with the MD surgeons, but really growing our optometric colleagues as well, to have a really comprehensive approach to eye care, and whether it's retina, cornea, glaucoma, you name it, and having that collaborative atmosphere as well. So that's kind of who we are and who I am, and kind of what we're all about, I guess.
Well, that's great. Now, Dr. Schiffbauer, I'll start with you when we talk about some of the collaboration that you have with Dr. Singh and perhaps other providers. And then I'll get to you too, Dr. Banas, to share your perspective. But Dr. Schiffbauer, when did you start to get involved with the collaborative care with the light adjustments of the light adjustable lens?
So I've been fortunate to be with the Eye Centers for a little bit over a year. So it was pretty soon into being there that I got involved with the light adjustable lenses, which has been a great experience. Throughout my career, I've been involved with collaborative care. So this is just something to add to our toolbox and be able to take care of patients.
That's great. And Dr. Banas, how about you?
I've been fortunate to be part of the Eye Centers for a while now. I'm in my 7th year. So I kind of, started the light adjustment lens processes with Paul and our other surgeon, Dr. Krishna Sanka. As soon as, we adapted that technology, I was very excited about it. I wanted to use it immediately. And I was, fortunate enough to be involved with their care, especially postoperatively, as soon as we employed the technology here.
Yeah, Matt, I didn't get a chance to answer the question about why we got involved with light adjustable lens that you asked. I'm sorry about that. One of the biggest things for me always has been maintaining high quality of vision. I've always wanted to make sure, regardless of what lens I pick, I didn't compromise high quality. Worst case scenario, they have to wear glasses in a post-op cataract, but you can still make them happy. And so for me, having, being someone who's involved with a lot of different type of comorbidities, type of situations, right? We always have patients who have other comorbidities that can limit their contrast or limit their ocular surface or limit their retina or nerve, whatever it might be, right? And so I didn't want to ever compromise on quality of vision. So I was always kind of more apprehensive to employ some of the other premium IOL technologies because I really didn't want to compromise that. And so what LAL did in the RxSight lens, it just opened this large population of patients that I just never, I thought it was going to be cannibalizing, my other premium IOLs, toric lenses, my multifocals, etc. And what we found is the opposite, actually. It not just only grew another market share, but it also even allowed us to even be, I think, more comfortable adopting even other premium technology. So it really grew our whole premium practice in general, just because we felt have more options for these patients, whether it's LAL or not. And so that was really, I think, a surprise. But it was really just about maintaining high quality of vision, being able to tailor to the patient, and that really grew a whole new segment that we never knew we had.
And yet you said that technology like the light adjustable lens has really opened up the door to a whole new market. Say more about that so we can understand very explicitly what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think when you think about what patients want, it's not always about getting rid of glasses. We get so focused on, do you want to get rid of glasses or not? And it's more about, okay, what do you want to achieve? If someone says, I want high quality of functional vision, I want to be able to, do the typical stuff that people say. I want to drive, want to watch TV, want to ski, want to play tennis, whatever it might be. And sometimes it's not about getting rid of glasses. And so when a person says, I don't really care about a multifocal lens, I don't really care about getting rid of reading glasses, I want the best quality. The RX site fills that mold, fills that patient where I would say, okay, here's a regular lens for you. But now we say, no, we can actually customize this lens to you. I always say to patients, I am not fitting the lens, I'm not fitting you to the lens. I'm fitting the lens to you. So I tell patients all the time, look, no matter how good we are as surgeons, no matter how good our biometry, our measurements are to measure the eye, to know what power of a lens to put in your eye, no matter how good we are, we're not perfect. And the way the lens sits in the eye can be a little different. Everyone's anatomy is a little different as well. And so I say to patients, if we want to really get this to fit your eye as perfect as possible, to give you the best quality of distance vision we can, and and maybe even some more potentially, the bottom line is this lens is going to give us the best chance for that. And I think that type of mentality I didn't have before, because it was always about, okay, you want a toric lens to get rid of glasses. You want a multifocal lens to get rid of glasses. Always getting rid of glasses. And then I switched it over to, do you want the best quality of vision or not? And being able to fit this lens to you and your eye specifically. And that all of a sudden, even patients love the idea. They're like, oh, I love that. Yeah. And it wasn't about getting rid of glasses. And so I think that opened up a lot of patients who I normally would have said, okay, regular IOL, regular IOL, regular package, and which is fine. And the regular lenses are still good, but that allowed us to feel more comfortable, not just saying, glasses or no glasses, and then quickly funneling into the standard IOL package.
Well, you said something there that makes me think about how unique your offering is when you're in your specialty within our craft. And that is this. I mean, you've dedicated your career to sight preservation, but now there's some neat options that give you sight restoration in a way that they hadn't before, which is what a powerful couple of topics to be trying to master. And that's really says something strong about your team, I think. Now I want to work our way back to some workflows. Now that you've kind of shared with us how you got into the technology, and I know you've been using it for a long time as well, and have really got a good reputation for that. But I know that it affects your practice's workflow. And at some point, Dr. Singh, you said, I am made for the OR, and I've got these two powerhouses who are seeing the patient, and by the way, who are really good at it. Because I think that some of the patient conversations, optometry in specifically because of their time with the patient, tends to be better at the verbal anesthesia than maybe some of our MD colleagues. How did you get to the decision to include Dr. Schiffbauer and Banas in the collaborative care with the light adjustments?
Well, I got to give these two some props. I'm going to show off a little bit there, because I truly believe we have the two best optometric colleagues that you can possibly have in this country or in this world. I mean, these guys are not only motivated to learn, they're motivated to collaborate and do what's best for the patient, and no matter what the situation is, and that's huge. And I never had a fellowship. I've always wanted a fellowship, and so I've been able to utilize our relationship with Jeff and Jess as a way to kind of interact and kind of create this fellowship of, okay, glaucoma. How do we manage, pre and post op, Zens, blebs, MIGs, you name it, dry eye, floaters, you name it, anything we do, we're always collaborating and going back and forth. And so we had that established kind of back and forth communication. I know they'd bring me cases. Hey, Paul, why do we do this? Why did you do this? I want to learn. And so I started feeling so comfortable with my pre and post op management of dry eye, glaucoma, retina, you name it, that when we started using LEL, at first I wanted to understand how to do the adjustments and the lock-ins. I think that was really important for a surgeon to know how to do it, to understand the whole process, to understand what the patients have to go through, understand the decision-making process with the patient. But once I got that, and I felt comfortable doing that, I realized that it was taking a lot of time from me, and it was taking away from consults. And I'm gone a lot, I travel a lot, and there's a lot of people who need, say, certain surgeries that only I can do this in our practice. So it was getting hard to have slots for LAL and adjustments, and then yet have slots for consults. And so when Jeff initially, and of course Jess said, "Hey, we'd be really happy to learn how to do this," I had the confidence already because I've seen their motivation, I've seen their efforts, I've seen their knowledge and the skill set to say, "Oh, absolutely, I feel comfortable." So we started out by doing the lock-in parts of it. We said, "Okay, you know what? Let's do the lock-in first, get you comfortable with holding the lens and focusing and looking at the screen and everything else." And then once they felt comfortable with that, then we started working on the adjustments as well. But it was very quickly, once I felt comfortable with the actual procedure and the follow-ups and understand the decision-making process with the patients, right away I was like, all right, I got that, but now I'm going to let these two take over, and they've done a fantastic job. So that's kind of how it kind of helped with us. And now I'm so happy because I have those slots open again to see
Yeah.
consults and do lasers and whatever else we have to do as well.
Well, and that's part of the trick with this technology is figuring out the workflow part. Dr. Banas, so, for a few years now, you've had this process.
Mhm.
Tell us about the choreography. What are you looking for with those visits, and when do you decide to do the adjustments? What tips
Sure.
have you learned?
Well, thanks for the question, Matt. I think it's important to start off by saying, number one, I don't compromise patient care under any circumstances, whether it takes me a while to, have an initial conversation with the patient, and that might take me a long time to kind of, set up and then eventually tee off. But, at least we hit all those expectations accordingly. And I take a lot of time with the initial visit. I'm seeing these patients postoperatively from day one. So we're already establishing that relationship. A lot of times I've seen them as a patient for a routine eye exam, and then I've decided, your cataracts are really your problem. I've got two excellent surgeons in-house here that can take care of that for you. Let me set you up preoperatively. So there may be some dry eye management that we're doing initially before they even get to the surgeon, before they see, Paul or Krishna. And then once they get to them, it's already streamlined. We've taken care of the ocular surface. I've taken care of a lot of measurements. The pre-op procedure should be pretty easy for, the MDs and our staff to get those accurate measurements at that time. Then Paul goes through the surgery, or, Dr. Sanka goes through the surgery pretty routinely. I see those patients day one. How'd it go? Mr. or Mrs. Smith, and usually it's, "Hey, it was awesome. They were great. It was everything that you said would be. I'm so happy that I did this. Where do we go from here?" And I take that time to explain to them, look, you and I, we've already got a great relationship because I've invested that time, but this is gonna be, a little bit of stepwise process. We're gonna get to know each other for, a lot better here over the next, few weeks, if not months, depending on, how I decide to handle your care here. There's usually that 1 day visit, 1 week visit, the 3 week visit, where then we're starting to consider the first adjustments. If I see a posterior capsular opacification, then I'm dealing with that, sending them back to one of our two surgeons to get that taken care of, even if it's minor, because I want to optimize the outcomes that we have here. Before we move forward, I don't want that to influence my measurements or my adjustments.
Dr.
Yeah.
Schiffbauer, help me with the choreography. When does the patient learn about all those visits, and then do you schedule them all up front, knowing that they could change, and that it's a benefit if they take them off the schedule, or how does that go before surgery?
Yeah, sure. We have a great surgical team. So, like Dr. Banas had said, they're setting up their postoperative appointments just like any patient that's getting cataract surgery. And then additionally, we're going ahead and scheduling them for at least 3 appointments, depending on whether that be an adjustment and 2 lock-ins. And then if we need to schedule more accordingly, we'll do so, following up when we see them for their adjustments potentially. So typically a 1 week, a 1 day, a 1 week, and then 3 potential adjustments.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think that, and Dr. Banas, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that, but I do think what I've heard is that it's very helpful to set the tone with the patient
Yeah.
out in time, that you're going to be walking around and almost prescribing during their walk around time, their test drive time. of how they're going to use their vision. Notice it when you're golfing, notice it when you're driving, notice it when you're reading. How do you want that to settle in, and be thinking about how you want to adjust it? And I hear your colleagues say things like that about that stage of the experience.
I do often add that in there, usually somewhere between the first or second adjustment. I'll say, look, there's no rush to move on to, lock in period or to adjustment number 3, should you want. I want you, if you're comfortable with it, to really take a couple weeks to test drive this, at home, make sure all your visual needs that you're most concerned about are met. But I want you to make sure that you are very happy with where we're at before we move forward. And if that takes you another week, if that takes you another month, let's talk about what you need right now. And then I will reschedule your appointments accordingly so that we can make sure we hit your goals, your visual needs.
How often has it happened in the past? This is for both of you, Dr. Schiffbauer and Dr. Banas. Has it happened where a patient's in front of you for their next adjustment and you've said, let's just wait a little bit until you're more confident? Does that share it with an example, or tell me how that works?
I would say, like Dr. Banas said, like, I'm never rushing the patient to, fly through these adjustments and the lock-ins. Really want to customize it to their goals and their needs. And that's something too, even before I start doing adjustments, just to get a better feel for what the patient's goals are with these lenses. So what their hobbies are, what their occupation is. And if we're not meeting those needs and potentially talking about a second adjustment or a third adjustment, and they're still not sure, I say, like, hey, let's wait another week. Let's wait another month. Go on vacation, come back, and we'll reassess the situation.
Even I think I'm going to jump in there. Jess, wasn't there a patient recently? We had floaters, and he said, "Hey, take care of the floaters first, and then we'll do the adjustment afterwards." So because we do a lot of floater treatments here as well. So talk about that patient, because I think was interesting too.
Yeah. So this patient, we had done her first adjustment, and then when she came back to do her potential second adjustment, her vision had improved after her first adjustment, which was awesome. But was noticing a lot of fluctuations on when I was doing the refraction. She was complaining of floaters. So of course, we held off on the adjustment. I saw her back and did 2 or 3 refractions before bringing in Paul to come and take a look at the floaters. So we said, let's adjust the floaters first before we do any of the adjustments, so we're not wasting an adjustment that potentially the vision is fluctuating or changing. But I think in the end she'll do great. It's just we got to just take a little bit of a back step and then proceed forward with the rest of the adjustments.
Now, I want to switch gears because we could use these patient examples for a long, long time. But, there's a lot of people who say, Dr. Schiffbauer, wow, Dr. Banas, wow. All I heard you say is this is going to take a lot more time. What do you say to them?
I'll go first.
That's fine.
To them, this is an investment in your vision and this is your future. So what do you want? Where do you want your, like I said earlier, where your goals are, and talking to them about, their hobbies, their occupation, what they want to use their eyes for. So I think, in the beginning, I think that some patients are a little upset for multiple different reasons. Of course, dilating them to the fullest that we can to do the adjustments can also take some time. But preparing them ahead of time, we have a great staff that prepares them to let them know that they're going to be dilated, that's going to take some longer visits. And then potentially, there's no rush in getting this done. So I think that's just encouraging to the patients as well, because they're not saying I have to get this done by a certain amount of time. But we're also willing to work with the patients too as well.
I like to have some fun with it a little bit. I turn it around on them. Number one, I'm a very impatient person myself, so I use that as a relation, and I tell them that. I'm like, look, trust me, I would want this to be done tomorrow if I were you too. But you obviously invested a lot of money into this, right? Those glasses that you're walking around to protect you, from the UV light there, probably the most expensive pair of glasses you're ever going to buy. And I laugh about that with them, and they go, yeah, you're probably right. But we want to get this right. We want to take the time to do this appropriately. And like Dr. Schiffbauer said, she made a great point. This is an investment in your vision. And I'm a little biased towards that sense. I don't really care about smell or hearing as much as I do, my vision. So if I were you, trust me in this process, and you're going to see as I go, what I'm telling you is going to happen, ideally will happen. And you're going to see that we're going to get to that finish line together. And when we do, you're going to be very happy with the results, once it's all said and done. So it's easier for me as an impatient person to say be patient, but be patient. You'll be happy once it's all said and done.
Dr. Singh, you also run into colleagues, throughout the industry, who say this just takes too long. What do you say?
Well, I think you're good question. Initially, it does take a long time when you're trying to figure out the flow, trying to understand kind of when do you do adjustments, what's your target going to be, the first lens you pick, and then but what you start to realize is, hey, you know what? Now we kind of have that flow. Okay, that first eye, I'm going to make a dominant. I'm going to make this non-dominant. I make 0.75, whatever it is. You can start to have that discussion pre-operatively, and then know what to plan post-operative. So your plans are much faster. You know what to do with that first adjustment usually right away. So that doesn't take as long. What took a long time was having that discussion and knowing, okay, what's my first adjustment going to be? Now we have that kind of down, and I know I'm sure Jess and Jeff can talk about how they do that. But more importantly, it's a practice builder, man. An extra 5 minutes here and there, an extra 10 minutes here and there, is that going to kill you? You know what? If you have one less patient you can see, fine, but you're going to grow another dozen more patients. You're going to get LALs in the future. So from a financial level and from a practice building level, it's going to grow your practice. So it's one of those penny wise, pound foolish things. Don't worry about the 1 or 2 or 5 minutes extra you're taking here. Worry about how much benefit it's going to give you with the referrals from word of mouth and from the positive vibe that you're getting from the patient. So I think you will get faster initially. There's a learning curve, absolutely, but you'll get faster from a flow. We're utilizing your colleagues, like optometric colleagues that we have, or other MDs in their practice who may not be doing surgery, medical ophthalmologists who don't, let's say, don't want to do surgery. Great opportunity to get them involved. That way it frees you up as a surgeon.
Dr. Singh, I'm curious to know, from when you started the light adjustable lens to now, without sharing your price, is it the same as when you started? Is your price for the LAL now higher than it was, or is it lower than it was?
It was a little bit lower before we first started out, just to kind of get our feet wet, but now it's gone up. It has gone up, and again, the way we price is not to price gouge. It's just we looked at, okay, what is the time and effort from Dr. Schiffbauer and Dr. Banas, right? There's obviously the cost of the lens and cost of everything else, and the LDD device, et cetera. So we try to take all that in consideration. But what I will say is, I was afraid at first that, hey, if we're gonna increase this price this much and well above the other premium IOL technologies that we're utilizing, it is a different price point. Are we gonna have patients balk at that and then say no way? And I'm telling you, I am shocked because it hasn't. It hasn't. I mean, patients, if they want the best quality of vision, if they want to customize the vision and customize the lens to them, they're willing to pay for it, and they appreciate. They've appreciated the technology more with LAL than any other lens that we've utilized. So if you tell a patient, hey, this whole package price for a range of vision lens, like a multifocal lens, includes this, this, and this, and this, and the lens does this, this, and this, great, doc. But now you say, hey, this lens I can adjust after surgery. We let you live with it. We can change the power of the lens without doing any. There's just a beam of light while it's in your eye, and we can change it to help you customize your vision. They understand that, and I think patients place more value to that technology and that ability than any other of the other benefits of the other technologies as well. So, I would say yes, our price point has gone up, but it hasn't negatively affected our adoption from our patients, because I think they appreciate the benefits of the technology.
Well, and what I would say is that as you're doing that, the fact that it hasn't affected adoption indicates that we're still very early in this market, where price is still pretty elastic. And, until you're being told no 80% of the time, this is still on the very front end of adoption as far as consumer adoption curve is concerned. And then the second thing is, and I think this is a really big key, because you mentioned that your LAL price is higher than maybe some of your other premium IOL prices. And I think that's something that's worth saying also when people say, but doesn't it take longer? It does. And you'll get faster, and it's nominal. But they're invested. I mean, they also pay more for that experience, and they're more invested in it in time and dollars.
Yeah, and our time is worth it. Time is worth it. That's one thing we don't have a lot of, and that's one thing that's getting less and less. So we have to, as providers, value our time, and that's part of that. Absolutely, Matt. Great point.
And that, to kind of piggyback off of that, sorry to jump in there, but that patient sure is spending more time in the office, but you're building a longer term relationship with that patient too. In a way, they're paying for that, sure. But now we have that patient, especially when we get the great outcomes that we have for life, and they're going to keep coming back to us for care, the word of mouth that's going to come. It's a benefit to us to offer that premium service to them as well, and then to achieve those outcomes and be able to spend that time with them. I don't want you to be in office for, a quick 5-minute visit. I don't get to know you. I don't get to talk to you. I don't get to, help you out with your visual needs. And now with this, you're kind of forced to get to know me, and I'm kind of, forced in a positive way to get to know you. And now we have a relationship, and now you have a commitment to me and my practice for a longer period of time. So it's a good investment across the board, regardless of the price that they pay.
So this is a nice transition between all of you because you and then your other surgical, partner, you're all invested in this workflow. But the people who are missing on this call is your team. And so, Dr. Singh, I'd like to just ask, with the change in workflow, where a lot of what would be done preoperatively and that kind of counseling and hand-holding is now done postoperatively, and teams don't love changes in workflows. How have you what? No. How have you got them on board? And Dr. Schiffbauer and Banas, I'm coming to you next with the same question.
Oh, you're talking about like our ancillary team, like our technicians and our surgical coordinator. Well, look, it changes hard, and I'll be honest with you. I'm a new adopter to almost everything, so my staff used to get really annoyed and actually pissed off at me, like, God, Paul, would you just like stay with doing one thing for a little bit of time so we can all just like breathe? And what I will tell you is a best way for a provider to know if a technology truly is worth it and truly is beneficial is if your staff tells you, thank you for adopting this technology. And I can tell you, our staff, yes, initially it was a lot of work, especially for our technicians working with the LDD treatments and trying to work with the flow and with Jeff and Jess. There's a lot of changes of, okay, who's going to help Dr. Schiffbauer do light adjustments today, and who's going to help Dr. Banas, and there's a lot of that, no doubt. But when you see these patients come back and they're happy and they're saying thank you, thank you, thank you, and they're telling their friends, and you realize, wow, what we're doing here is truly, truly revolutionary in changing people's lives. To me, and what I'm still learning as a provider and as an owner, as a leader, is making sure you educate your staff on what we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing. It's not just, hey, we're doing this now, deal with it. It's like, let's explain the technology, explain the process, explain why we're adopting this as a center and why it's important for all of us to be involved as a team, because we can't do this without a team effort. And then you see the benefits as well. So, having the education part of it is, I think, as important. And that's something that I think Jeff and Jess have done a great job too as well.
Dr. Schiffbauer, how about you? How have you seen the staff get more engaged?
Yeah, I think actually, I think it's worked well. Obviously, like flow has been something that's a work in progress all the time. But having like dedicated clinic time for these patients, and then also having dedicated support staff has helped a ton. I think the staff is really excited because sometimes the patients are asking them more questions when they're dilated and they're actually asking me sometimes. So they're also learning too as well. And the patients are excited to come back, and they're building a relationship also with our team. So that's been a great experience overall.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Jess's comments too, I mean, number one, everybody from the front end staff to, the surgery team, us, and our technicians are all well aware and educated on the technology. So, those receptionists know these are LAL patients. We need to make sure we book appropriate time for them and give them some leeway. Our technicians know, hey, these are premium patients. We're going to make sure that they get the best experience when we call them back and we start doing, the pre measurements for, whether that be for the surgeon or for me. And then I'm fortunate enough, and really all of us as providers, we have excellent assistants and scribes that get to sit in the room with us on a daily basis. They see what they do. My scribe has gotten so good. She's been with me for a couple of years now that she can practically finish my sentences. She's often joking with the patients, and she'll be the one setting them up. She's managing the flow for me behind the scenes. Her and I, it's a choreography just from how we handle things. She knows what I want. She knows what I need, and it's great to have that kind of a person to be able to lean on in these situations, so that my flow is as efficient as possible with these patients. And sure, I'm spending quality time with them, but I'm not spending more than I need to.
It's interesting. A bunch of years ago, when I would visit practices, I'd hear team members talk about LASIK and then also talk about phakic IOLs at the time. And you would hear a patient being counseled by staff members who didn't necessarily believed or weren't that engaged. And they'd say something like, a patient would say, well, what's the difference? And they'd say, I don't know, it just costs more. And that's a cue of a disengaged kind of team member who doesn't necessarily believe, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if your team members are being asked and they're excited about it and they see these outcomes, and they're energized, it's a real testament to uh, the leadership of you three in adopting technologies that aren't for naught. They're for good reasons,
Well,
and and they're for, it gets the staff excited.
but to your point, Matt, I was walking past Lisa, who's my scheduler for these surgeries, and I just happened to be walking past, and I was just like, let me hear what she's saying, And a patient was asking, like, do you really think that this light adjustable lens is worth it or not, And you're absolutely right. She could have said, well, it's up to you, it's a bit, they're all the same, they're all good, it's up to you. She's like, absolutely. And she's like, if it was me, I would have this lens, right? And so I think the fact that our staff can actually take ownership and say, yeah, this is something that's worth it, that means a lot because they've seen the results, right? But then that helps also the patient, because the patient, if they're hearing me saying it's great and then the text like, oh, it doesn't matter, that disconnect's not good. And so I think that you see that our own technicians too, who are working on patients, they'll ask them sometimes and they'll say the same thing. So that's great to hear.
Powerful,
Very.
powerful. Well, we're going to round the corner here towards home, and I've got one more question for you, and then a quote that I think is worth ending on for tonight. But Dr. Schiffbauer, let's say you're talking to a practice who is considering adopting this technology. What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say definitely go for it. I definitely would recommend if they're uncomfortable or they just shadowing someone else too as well. I mean, whether it's the OD or the MD, just to get a better idea. I think a lot of it just revolves around the flow and then getting your staff educated. So providing the right education to the staff, just like we mentioned, it's a team effort. So there's going to be questions from the patients. There's going to be questions about the surgery and so forth, so that everyone's aware of what's going on. But I think this is an awesome thing for patients. Patients have the right and the opportunity to customize their vision to what they want. So I don't think it should shy anyone away from doing this technology.
Dr. Banas?
I would say it's simple. Where you been and what are you waiting for? I mean, the technology, like I said, creates such flexibility, creates such great relationships with the patient. It's easy to perform and do, and it's just a huge investment that will pay off in the end for everybody involved. So you shouldn't be doing this like yesterday, really.
Dr. Singh, bring us home.
Man, I tell you, this has been I would say one of the most disruptive technologies, and I've had a lot of new technology in my practice, and probably one of the most disruptive technologies we've had because it's finally allowed us as a team, as an office, to work as a team. We always talk about teamwork, and yeah, it's great, but this really has allowed that to happen. And so, to me, it's absolutely it's a no-brainer because you have a high quality lens that you can customize, that's flexible for a large variety of patients, but it builds teamwork, it builds a rapport, and it builds your practice. I think people do talk as well. So as Jeff said, there's no reason not to. I think any surgeon skill set can do this lens, and any team and any practice, just with enough education, with enough kind of cooperation, it's a fantastic addition. Absolutely.
Well, what we heard tonight was on this session, what we heard today on this session was that this is a great patient satisfier where they get brought along the way to really inform their own outcome. And because of that, they're invested. Because the technology is so good and because of the time that they invest with you, you also can charge more. So it's a happier, more healthy patient, a happier, more healthy bottom line. But what you also shared is that it's a happier and maybe more healthy team as well, because everybody's pulling in the same direction. And it's really inspirational to hear you all talk about it. I'd like to end where we began. And Dr. Banas, you said something when you were introducing yourself that should be the answer to anyone who ever asks. Yeah, but doesn't this take longer than other technologies? Here's your opening line. I want to start by saying I don't compromise patient care under any circumstance.
And I'm proud of that. I'm 100% proud of that.
That's what
Well,
we love, Jeff.
I mean, what a great reason to adopt and hold fast to a technology that's good for everyone. And no matter if it does take a little bit longer. And you shared how it doesn't necessarily, but what a great flag to plant in the ground. And
Well,
congratulations for having that commitment, Dr. Schiffbauer. Yours is aligned with that too. And Dr. Singh, thanks for allowing us to meet with your whole team tonight.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having us, man. And then come visit
thank you,
anytime.
Matt.
Come to
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Sheep's heads are fun to hang out and visit. So, Matt, you got to come visit us too, man. Come hang out. We'd
We
love to have you.
will. We will. Listen, everybody, thanks for tuning in to RxSight Ed, our educational series about light adjustable learnings with the light adjustable lens from RxSight. We will now call our meeting adjourned.